Welcome to the To Fight For podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Heather. We're offering you a seat at our table to join our conversations, which center on healing through reimagining hospitality in relationships. This season, we are focusing on building and maintaining authentic, healthy friendships.
Our friendship has been through the ringer, but now it's stronger than ever because we chose to fight for it. Our hope is to inspire you to fight for yours.
Hey, listeners.
Hi.
Jamie and I are back, and we are diving into the topic of ghosting today. And it's something that we can relate to in our own relationship. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But the topic of ghosting, it seems like it's become this culturally accepted means of ending a relationship. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has become much easier for people to just walk away and not fight for relationships anymore. And I think social media has probably played a little bit into it, but I also think that for some reason we feel like things should be easier, that we don't really have to fight for relationships. And you do. You have to fight for relationships.
Right.
You have to have conversations. And for some reason, I don't know where we lost the inability to fight for things that we want.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up social media. If we're looking at the easiness of how we can unfollow someone, all you have to do is push a button, or, you can block somebody or unfollow somebody that disagrees with you. It's become so easy, just the click of a button, and you can halt a social media relationship, if you even want to call it. I mean, it's not really a relationship, I guess, but some sort of acquaintance, whatever. And I think that we've taken the way that we live our lives on social media, and it's kind of manifested itself into our real life interactions with one another. So I think today when we talk about ghosting, I want to keep in mind, when we talk about walking away from a relationship in terms of ghosting, we are talking about a relationship where you might feel close with that person. There was a pre-existing intimate relationship, and rather than having a hard conversation, somebody decided just to walk away. We are not talking about abusive relationships where you need to leave and get out of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to say that there are some relationships in your life that you do need to do healthy ghosting. Yeah, I just said that, healthy ghosting. I don't know if that's a thing. Might have just made it up. I have no clue. I don't care.
Makes sense in the context.
I mean, it's, there are times in your life, if you are in an abusive relationship, if you are in a very unhealthy, narcissistic relationship, and somebody is beating you down physically and or mentally, you need to healthy ghost them.
Get out of that relationship.
Get out of it.
Yeah, we are not saying to stay in unhealthy relationships.
Yes.
That is not the message here.
If you have tried to have difficult, uncomfortable conversations with people, and they are not willing to join you in conversation, that is a unhealthy relationship. You can't keep fighting for, and the other person is doing no fighting.
Right.
It has to be both people. Your and I's relationship survived. We didn't talk for a while, but we had our second friendship because we both decided to fight for our friendship. I didn't just show up. Heather didn't just show up. We both showed up.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to distinguish that we are not encouraging anyone to remain in an unhealthy relationship. If it's abusive, get out of there. But if a relationship is unhealthy and you are having those difficult conversations, I think it's important to keep in mind exactly what Jamie said. But that's what we're encouraging here, is to have those conversations and then see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in our own relationship here, we're talking about ghosting. Ghosting basically is when you just decide, oh, I'm done, and you walk away. That can feel like a sharp snip in a relationship where once you were tethered to somebody and all of a sudden you both are just floating free. There's no connection. Nobody would even know that you're friends. I've experienced this in my own life, and it is extremely painful, especially when there are no conversations that are had you're left wondering what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem here? That's why we're encouraging this fighting for relationships, because it's important that we understand so that we can move forward and heal what the issues are. People need to be honest and open in their relationships, feel safe to do so, give one another the benefit of the doubt, and have the hard conversations.
Yeah. Because when you ghost somebody, your brain goes through the grieving process. It experiences everything. So it activates all of the loss systems in your brain the same way if somebody close to you died.
Mm-hmm.
It does the exact same thing in your brain when somebody ghosts you.
Right. And so when you find yourself in a relationship, somebody maybe that you've known for years, it's been an intimate relationship in terms of they know you well, you know them well, and you hit this part in your relationship where you're feeling uncomfortable and there's things that need to be worked out, when you just snip it and you just ghost a person, but you're still alive and you're walking around and that person that you snipped still sees you, it's like torment. And as being on the receiving end of that, and you and I are going to talk about our relationship here.
Yeah.
That is awful because you're grieving the loss, essentially the death of a relationship in your life, but you still see that person out and about and you're left without answers. You're left questioning, what did I do wrong? What just happened? And you're working through those feelings as well as the grief that accompanied the ghosting. And oftentimes it brings in friend groups. When you have a ghosting in between two people, inevitably there's going to be mutual friends. And then they're like, how do I handle this? If I want to have a birthday party and these two people stop talking to each other, who do I invite?
Right.
And I think at some point we need to be looking at these friends in our lives and saying it's not your burden to bear. You know, how we treat one another impacts more than just the person we're walking away from. It impacts, it's like a domino effect. It can impact our families. It can impact our friend groups. So we want to talk about ghosting in a very intentional, specific sense, how it feels being ghosted, how it felt being the ghoster. Jamie and I are going to talk about that. But I want to paint it in a broad sense as well, is that the impact of ghosting has very long tentacles in many, many relationships.
Yeah. And I think that's what is amazing about our story and us talking about ghosting is we're not just sitting here and preaching or lecturing ghosting. This is what it looks like. And this is what happens in your brain. And this is what some people feel like. Yeah, we're going to talk about what happens in your brain. And we're going to talk about what it feels like. But it's from our own perspectives of real things that have happened in our relationship. So for those of you who are catching this podcast now and you didn't listen to the previous podcast, Heather and I, we call it friendship number 1. And then there was a ghosting period. And now we are in friendship number 2. The relationship that we have now, we say it is friendship number 2.
The good one.
The good one.
Yeah. The healthy one.
Yeah.
The one that's going to survive an zombie apocalypse or whatever. Like,
yeah,
we're ready for it.
We're ready for it. All right. So I think, why don't you talk about your stuff? Let's go with you first, and then I can go second.
Okay. So I wanted to open up today by actually sharing one of Jesus's parables, the parable of the lost son. Maybe we've heard it as the parable of the prodigal son. This is about a family, a father with 2 sons. The younger son asks for his inheritance early, which is not culturally apropos. Like that back then, you don't ask for your inheritance early. It's very rare for any father who owns any sort of land to give his inheritance away early. The son requests it, the father gives it, the son goes off, squanders it, finds himself hungry and in need, and then he comes back. He returns. The father accepts him back with open arms. You do have a little bit of, bitterness and envy and resentment from the older son because he's like, Dad, this younger brother just squandered everything and you're accepting him back. And I think a lot of times when I hear this preached, the focus is the Father's posture. And it is a beautiful posture. It's indicative of God's love and posture towards us, that when we mess up and we return, he is there always waiting for us back. He forgives us, and we're always welcome in his arms. There's never a closed posture from the Father. And we also see the posture of the brother. It is so easy, and we talked on our last podcast about envy, about seeing sometimes other people and what they get and what they receive and how that can cause bitterness in our own lives. So I've heard a lot of these messages preached, but one thing I've never really paid much attention to until I really started digging in about ghosting was the posture of the prodigal son and how he returns. The father did not chase that son down when he walked away, when he was in his hard moment. That father was waiting there with open arms for his son's return. And that is how healing happened. That son had to return. He had to choose to come back after he chose to walk away. And he came back and said, "I'm so sorry I sinned, Father." And the father's just like, "I got you. Your family, you're here." So there's two things I want to point out here. One is the posture of the son that is returning. He is coming back and he's repentant. We cannot have healing in our relationships. We might be able to have personal healing, and I know that you're going to expand on that later. We might be able to have personal healing and be able to heal from ghosting and other things in our lives. But we can't have healing in our relationships until there's repentance and the things are named, those wounds that we've caused other people, and ghosting is one of them. And the other thing is the posture of the father. And when I think about our relationship, when you came to me after you ghosted me, that was my posture towards you. I don't know if it was necessarily open super wide, my arms. I think maybe I was like, I had like little T-Rex arms that were open wide. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to let you in, but I have to hear what you want to say first, you know? And then I think as we continued working on that relationship, now my arms are like flailing open for you. But I think there is this recognition that needs to be had when we are in a relationship and there's a walking away. There has to be a return. I have tried in my own experience to pursue someone who walked away from me at one point, and that did not work. That person did not want to reconcile that relationship at that time. And I'm not saying that might be true for everybody that wants to pursue somebody that walked away from them. Every situation, every relationship is going to be different. But I think it lends some truth to what happens in the heart and how God works each individually in us, what we're prepared for, how we want to heal, how we want to move forward. And I believe that that message in this parable about the son returning is something that we really need to pay attention to. It helps us own our own actions.
Yeah. So why don't you share what it was like for you when I ghosted you?
So I think in the beginning, I felt your silence. And at that point, I hadn't really walked through a lot of my individual healing journey, which we had talked a little bit about in our first podcast when I was in seminary. And I was really learning who I am, becoming much bolder in who I am, and understanding my own responsibility. Who am I? And what is the responsibility of other people? And at this time, I was also going through therapy, which was amazing. I love my therapist. I'm pretty sure we'd be besties if she wasn't my therapist.
Which is how you should feel about your therapist. Yeah. I mean, you should.
Yeah. She was amazing. So I was feeling this silence, and I can just recall an afternoon where I sat on the couch and just cried because I think I was feeling the heaviness of abandonment, and abandonment is my core wound. That's something that I've experienced a lot in my life. So for me, walking away or a ghosting is the biggest way that you can hurt me. There, I just put it out there. That is the biggest way you can hurt me. It's devastating to me. And so I was feeling that. I was feeling that lost, like I was grieving the death of someone, even though I could still see you out and about at school pickup or whatever. Our kids are in the same class. And so you were still everywhere. And all of a sudden, this friendship that I had with you wasn't there anymore. I was confused. So I was grieving. I was confused. I felt abandoned. But with that, and I know that this is very unique to our story, but you basically took all my friends with you. So I didn't just lose you, I lost an entire friend group. So I felt very lonely and just kind of forgotten about. And that was really, really hard. I know there were days when my husband came home and he was just like, "Heather, what are you going to do?" your behavior isn't healthy. It's not okay. I was depressed. I probably could have been clinically depressed that time. So
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what was happening in your brain. Okay.
Okay.
So you said abandonment issues came up,
Mhm.
like fear. So in your prefrontal cortex, which is the same thing that happens when you're grieving. Okay.
Mhm.
This process is also a grief process.
Mhm.
It triggers our brain in the exact same way. So your prefrontal cortex was wondering what went wrong.
Mhm. I needed an explanation. I wanted to
Yeah.
know, and I had no answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Because your brain's telling you, I need to ask all of these questions and I want answers. And there was nothing.
Mhm.
So then that lent to what other thoughts?
I kept trying to play out conflicts in my mind. So I kept writing narratives and then maybe what I would have said had we had a conversation, or asking you questions, or trying to guess what your answers would be. And I could never find resolution.
And so were you sleeping well?
No.
Were you eating less, eating more, eating the same?
I don't know. That's really, I don't have a good memory. I mean, I know that my behavior was different and I remember being depressed. So I would guess that I probably was not eating well.
Yeah. So that is a response to the grief of our friendship and
Mhm.
not having the answers.
Yeah.
You wanted to ask lots of questions and you wanted answers from me. But in the ghosting, there's not the opportunity to get those answers.
Mhm.
Had you reached out and maybe sent me a bunch of questions, the likelihood of me answering it would have been slim.
Right. And I didn't want to set myself up for more rejection. I already felt the most rejection.
Right.
So, mhm.
Yeah. And so in the hippocampus of your brain, that is triggering unwanted thoughts.
Mhm.
So talk about maybe some of that. Because I know you and I have talked about it, but
Mhm.
let's share with our listeners some of the unwanted thoughts that your brain was like a bucket just dumping it in there.
Mhm. I mean, I'm really walking through a painful memory here, but I think I questioned my value. If it is so easy for people just to walk away from me after I've loved them, invited them into my home, traveled with them, I mean, what does that say about me as a person? Do I have no value? I mean, it was painful because there was such a dramatic shift. You walked away, but this whole friend group went quiet as well. And I remember feeling like nobody cares about me. Like nobody cares about me. I felt very isolated. I almost felt shame, even though I didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? I could not come up with any behavior in my mind that would have made you and everybody else walk away from me. I had no idea. So I felt shame. And then I'm questioning my personality. Like, what was it that people didn't like about me? And then I'm trying to answer those questions myself.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure it also didn't help that at times I would ask you, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm. And this is back when we were friends.
This was in friendship number one.
Right.
Okay. Friendship number one, we would go out as a larger group, hang out with a bunch of people. And Heather can be quiet sometimes. And specifically, I would ask her, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you?
Yeah. And I remember in those moments being like, nothing's wrong. I'm just quieter. And especially if we were in a friend group where maybe, you and I might have been close and I might have been close with a couple other girls, but there were also people there that I didn't know. And when there's kind of an eclectic mix of people and I don't know everybody, I can be quiet. I'm an introverted extrovert, which means I love one-on-one time. I love those deep conversations, but get me in a big group and that sucks my energy out. I like just kind of sitting and talking to one or two people. That really gives me energy, but I feel depleted when I don't know people and I have to make small talk. Small talk is not my gift. I try it. And so I tend to get quiet, and it's not because there's anything wrong.
Right.
It's just part of who I am. I tend to become a little bit quieter when I feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know because you and I have talked about our friendship number one and me ghosting you and walking away and what that felt like. And we've had these conversations over and over again.
Yeah, we're not discovering new things here.
Yeah. So it's not like I'm calling Heather out and I'm being like, please share this on the air with everybody so that I know how you think and what you thought. We've already talked about this over and over again. So I do want to share that in the mix of all of this, which Heather alluded to earlier, was when you are trying to repair a friendship from ghosting, it is not going to be a one-time conversation. She accepted me back, but it wasn't like, ooh, we're going to try to go back to what our friendship number one was. Our friendship number one was unhealthy. We didn't want to go back to that.
Yeah, no.
We had to fix that. And with our own healing, we slowly grew friendship number two by having a lot of difficult, uncomfortable conversations, calling each other out for things that we would see or things that were said or sometimes even things that we would hear where we never did that in friendship number one. So I do want to add that in there.
Yeah.
Because as Heather mentioned, the biggest way to hurt her is abandonment, right? And so when we were not talking, your amygdala was saying, here's all of your abandonment stuff from your past. Do you remember that this happened in your childhood? Oh, see, this is why people treat you this way. This is why Jamie walked away. This is why that entire friend group walked away. Or this is what happened with X, Y, and Z in your teenage years. Your brain was saying, here's all of this. This is your normal.
All the trauma came back. All the memories. I started dwelling on all of them. So then it was like pounded.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't healed through any of that other stuff.
Right. The rejection, the abandonment and the rejection, the inability to ask questions, all of the triggers from not only people walking away, but the triggers from social media. Let's add that in there because you would still see pictures of me or pictures of other people.
That may have been the smartest thing I did was I just blocked everybody. When I recognized what was happening, I think I unfollowed. I don't even know how many people because I can't see this anymore. It's just not healthy for me. It was so hurtful. So I just had to unfollow a slew of people just to protect myself.
Because you didn't need that extra stuff on social media to add to your brain.
Right.
So you were recognizing your triggers, one of them being social media and seeing pictures of people hanging out and you're not a part of that group anymore. And you were like, nope, I'm recognizing that trigger and I'm taking that out of my life.
Right. That was a painful part of my life to walk through. But I think as I look back, I probably had a short time where I just wallowed. And I've learned so much about myself in the past 2 years. And I know that I feel things so deeply to the point where I can become my emotion. So I don't really, and you know this about me, I don't like really allowing myself to feel negative emotions because I don't want to become the emotion. Maybe it's like this weird fear that you can unpack at a later date one-on-one. But, you know, as I think about that time, I allowed myself to feel the pain probably a little bit too long. But I also then started saying, you know what? I am going to look at the people that God is bringing into my life now, and I'm going to work on those relationships. And I had to make a conscious shift in what I was focusing on. And I'm like, I can't focus on what I don't have anymore. I got to focus what's right in front of me, the people who are in my life. And there were some new people that God was bringing into my life. And there was seminary that was growing me and expanding me in ways and other things that I was becoming involved with. So there was this reparation that was happening even in the midst of my pain. And as I was able to kind of work through that and release, and that's what I had to do. I had to release the ghosting that I went through with you and just start healing on myself. I had to come to some sort of almost like an agreement with myself that I was going to heal and move forward, even though I didn't have the answers that I needed to wonder what happened with us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was it like for you being the ghoster, you jerk? How do you do that to somebody? I mean, I've never ghosted anybody in my life. I don't know what that feels like. What did it feel like?
So the honest answer was it wasn't super difficult.
I don't know if that should like cut like a knife.
I know. And people are going to listen to this. They're going to be like, wow, Jamie, you're kind of an a-hole. But what people also need to understand is that is what I was trained to do from an early age. Okay.
It had nothing to do with me.
It had nothing to do. Like, now in our friendship, number one, there was things that needed to be talked about, and we needed to really talk about how we were maybe perceiving each other, what was happening in our friendship and like other friendships. Like there was a lot of things that needed to be talked about, and we didn't talk about it. Okay.
But ghosting, would you say ghosting is like is that like not a coping mechanism?
It's like an unhealthy coping mechanism.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So, and I want to say this, I'm not making excuses for my behavior. I've owned my behavior with Heather. Yes. We have talked about it. But this is not the first person that I have been like, you know what? That's it. We're done. I'm going to walk away. No conversation. We're just going to do that because that's what I have been trained to do as a kid. Okay. I didn't have a super amazing childhood, so it was easy for me to detach from people that I felt envious of. I felt unworthy of their friendship. I felt unworthy of the love. I felt that I wasn't good enough. I felt like I wanted to be a part of something else instead because I thought maybe other things were better and the grass is greener. All of this stuff came up. So I feel like we had some conversations and then I was just like, I'm just not gonna talk to you anymore. I just can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so I just walked away from you. So was it easy to do? Yeah. I think it would have been more painful for me to do it. It might have been more difficult for me to do it had I not just surrounded myself with other people. Because I don't think that anyone called me out. They weren't like, how dare you?
Nobody questioned you. Nobody said what happened. They just allowed it. And
I think the only person that really questioned me was Josh, my husband. I think he's the only one that I can remember. Now, maybe for people who are listening, maybe you did and I don't remember, but the only conversation I remember is with my husband. There was no group of friends or a community of church people or anything like that that was like, we're going to question your behavior and why did you ghost Heather and completely stop talking to her? Like, how could you do that? Maybe you should go back to her and have a relationship. Nobody was holding me accountable. And my husband was the only one who kind of held me accountable, but he also didn't say a whole lot. And I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. Like, I should be holding myself accountable, right?
Right. I think there's a difference between having friends and people speak into your life and hold you accountable versus taking the burden of responsibility for your behavior.
Yes.
Nobody else needs to take the burden of responsibility for your behavior or try to fix it. But as friends and people, we speak into one another's lives. That's biblical. Iron sharpens iron. We are called to rebuke and encourage and teach and speak into one another's lives. So if you had 0 friends and 0 people doing that in your life, they enabled you to walk away. So they're complicit in the ghosting.
Yeah. Which we could talk about that for a really long time. You know, how people are complicit in relationships because they're not gently and lovingly calling people's behaviors out. Right.
Right.
So as time went on, it got harder because our kids and our husbands were still friends. And so I did have some feelings of, gosh, what did I do? I should maybe have a conversation with her. But then it's like, nope, I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to have a conversation with her. And it's not because I thought you wouldn't want to have a conversation. I didn't want to come back and have a conversation because I was like, well, I've already not talked to her for 3 months. So like, that's a while. 3 months is a while. So I'm not going to reach out. And then 3 months became 6 months. 6 months became a year and a half. Now we're 2 years down the road.
Mhm.
And I had thoughts prior to that 2 years. I should reach out and have a conversation with Heather. I should own my stuff. The only reason, though, I was able to own my stuff is because I was walking through grad school and my own counseling, and my grad program was very difficult. And they were very much like, you need to own your crap. You need to walk through your own trauma. You need to have your own healing or you can't help people. So not only, I was kind of like double counseling. I was getting it through grad school and I was getting it through my own counseling. And so there are things that I healed and I will continue to heal because certain areas, I don't think we're ever done healing.
You should always be working on ourselves. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that little girl Jamie is still in there and is going to come up and is going to be triggered. She's not going to forever be healed. But I've done so much healing that I was able to say, you know what? I'm going to own my stuff. I'm going to own my behavior. And I'm going to reach out to Heather. And the worst thing that's going to happen is she's going to say, nope, I don't want to talk to you and I don't want to meet you. It's been 2 years. That's too long. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you, what was your faith like during this moment? You know, when you're working on yourself, you're healing, you're in therapy, you're in school, and you're doing this double counseling, as you like to call it. You know, what was happening with your faith? Was God saying anything to you about our relationship?
I'd say in the beginning, no. And if he was, I wasn't listening because I felt like it was justified in me walking away from you for a number of reasons. I felt like it's fine. I can walk away from her. This is my normal. This is what I do when I feel hurt. I try to walk away from people. And as a matter of fact, you want to know a crazy thing is I did try to break up with my husband. I tried to break up with my husband and walk away from him after I knew I was in love with him and that he could hurt me. And I tried to break up with him and he was like, hell no, you're not breaking up with me. And now we're married. But that will give you an example of how deep rooted my ability to cut relationships off goes and how much healing I had to do. But I don't think in the beginning I was listening to God if he was talking to me because of my history of walking away from people.
So it was a coping. It was a way for you to protect yourself. Do you feel like you were escaping negative feelings? Or because again, coming from somebody who doesn't ghost, who is the exact opposite, who has the abandonment, I'm trying to climb into your head to understand what was the motivating force behind that decision.
I think it's to protect myself.
Okay.
If I would have come to you and we would have had more deep, transparent conversations of what was happening in our friendship and around us, it would have meant that the friendship could have been over. Maybe we would have had those conversations and we would have said, we actually can't be friends anymore. So instead of going through those difficult conversations and you being like, I don't think we can do this anymore, I said, I'm just going to walk away because I am protecting myself and I'm not going to allow people to hurt me.
So you are like preemptively doing the thing that you were afraid of happening.
Yeah.
So then fast forward to now when you and I have a conflict. You used to walk away because you felt like you wanted to protect yourself. But now, how do you feel when you come to me with a situation? Do you feel like you have to protect yourself?
No, I don't feel like I have to protect myself at all.
Okay.
No. And when I sent you that text message and I said, let's get together for breakfast, let's talk, I had no clue what you were going to say. And so in that time, I had done so much healing and I also felt like God was telling me, you're not done healing some of your crap because you haven't owned some of your behaviors. And one of the things I want you to own right now is you ghosting Heather. And I was like, shit, I don't want to do that. I do, but I don't.
Yeah.
Because it had been 2 years. That's a really long time to not talk to somebody and then come back and be like, hey, do you want to go to breakfast and like talk? maybe.
I'm like, hell yeah, I got a lot to say to you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I knew that going into that conversation, going into that breakfast, I wasn't pointing fingers. I was like, here's what I did.
Yeah.
I know why I did it. Was it right that I did it? No. And I owned it and said, I don't know where our relationship's going to go from here, but I just need to own my crap and say sorry that I did that. I'm sure it was painful. I don't know what it was like for you. I know it was painful for me at times, and I'm the one who walked away. So I can't even imagine what it was like for you. But I didn't know it was going to happen. I just had to own my stuff. It wasn't about repairing our friendship. I didn't come to you to be like, hey, I want to repair our friendship and become friends again. I came to you because I needed to own my crap and be like, I'm sorry and I should have done better.
Thank you for that. It's hard because I think if you're listening, there's probably a list of people that you wish would do that. And you don't always get that. You don't always get that person, like the prodigal son, that's going to come back in return and say, I'm sorry. And I think when we talk about healing relationships, we do need that repentance. We need that ownership. We need people to take responsibility in order for us to actually heal and work through that relationship. But I really like the way that we broke this down because we both had to heal as individuals. There was individual healing happening in both of us.
Yeah.
Which enabled us then to be able to come together and have a healthy conversation. Sometimes that doesn't happen. One person in an argument or a conflict, when there's a separation, one person might do growing or some self-work and self-reflecting and all of that. And the other person might never.
Right.
They might never, want to admit that they did anything wrong. And you're right. It's not always about who's right or who's wrong or who did the most wounding or who was hurt for this. But when you ghost, there's something different that happens. You can talk about the events that led up to it. We can talk about how our friendship was unhealthy or the things that we wish to change. But the very first thing that needed to be addressed in order for me to feel safe even talking to you was for you to own that. In order for me to be able to open up my arms, you had to come back and say, I'm sorry. And I look at that picture of that son returning to his father. The father already had open arms, but the son owned his stuff. And I don't want to miss that because in our culture, even our Christian culture, I feel like there's an expectation, and I have had this expectation placed on me to sweep things under the rug. Don't stir the pot. Don't cause conflict. Can't you just forgive and forget, is what people say. There is no forgive and forget. You can forgive, yes, but you cannot forget what people have done to you. And until the wounds are named and things are put out on the table and we have conversations, that healing will either be halted or it will be strictly individual healing that person does, and that relationship will not be repaired.
Yeah.
So thank you for the self-reflection that you did and for coming to me, because that doesn't always happen in relationships that have worked through conflict.
Yeah. I love you. You're welcome. I do want to touch on what you said, though, because there are other relationships after my healing that I have tried to have conversations with people that haven't been in my life. And those conversations have not been well received. Or those conversations hadn't happened because the door was closed. There was no open arms. And even though that was hurtful, I have to understand that that is okay. That is a decision that they have made, and it might not necessarily be about me. Or maybe that pain that I have caused them has not healed, or they have to process that more before we can have a conversation. So not everybody that you go to repair a relationship or say, I'm going to own my crap, is going to be accepting.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably more of my experience, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'll say that is one of the ways that I feel the most defeated as I approach this podcast, because the very thing that I want to encourage people to do, I haven't always met success in. Sitting down and having a difficult conversation with someone is very hard. It's not just difficult. It's not just hard. It's you're being vulnerable, even in your confrontation. I'm sharing my feelings of pain. If it's not received, that's devastating for me. The other person might feel attacked, and it might be through my own tears and, discomfort that I'm even articulating my feelings out loud. But if it's not received, being on the other end of that, the receiving end of that, it's painful. Because in my mind, I'm like, I love you enough to want to work through this thing, and to not have that open posture of receptance, that can be devastating. And I think I do want to acknowledge that the very thing that we're encouraging our listeners to do might not even be received. And
Right.
It's a hard thing to say out loud, but it is the right thing, because when we do go back to talking about peacemaking and peacekeeping, you will find peace when you are honest and true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot abandon your own feelings for the sake of keeping peace in somebody else's life. Because if
Right.
there's no peace in your life, then you're gonna be in a tough spot.
Yeah. And if there's no peace in your life, you can't have peace in a relationship.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If you, just like I learned in grad school, if I don't heal some of my own crap, how am I supposed to help other people heal?
Right.
Because I'm only going to see life through a certain lens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my own personal lens. And
Mhm.
I have to open that up bigger to be like, I've healed some of my stuff. Those thoughts might still come back up, but that's what they are. They are thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I can let them come into my brain, and I can say that that's not true anymore. And then it offers me the ability to see a larger perspective and accept people's confrontation of maybe my own behavior or how they're perceiving things,
Mm-hmm.
instead of always being on the defensive,
Right.
which is what I was doing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give a message to anybody that has been ghosted. I know what it feels like, and it's hard and it's painful. But as Jamie helped explain, it's a coping device, and it stems from unhealed wounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lack of emotional maturity, being able to handle your emotions, being able to know how to effectively communicate needs and feelings. And those of you who have walked through that, if you're carrying the burden of feeling like you did something wrong, I mean, maybe you did, but maybe you didn't. And working through that feeling of grief when you still see that person, working through the loss of a relationship, or possibly the loss of an entire friend group like I did, there's pain in that. But I just want to speak affirmation over you, knowing that ghosting it's cruel. I just have to say it. It's an intentionally cruel act. And the reason that we're talking about it is because we don't want to see it happen to anybody else. We wanted to talk about both sides, get really down to the nitty-gritty about it, so that people can think twice about whether or not they want to do this to a person. And if you are experiencing that now, that sense of abandonment, please know that you aren't alone, that you are an incredible, beautiful person. And the person that walked away is missing out on something amazing. They just
Mhm.
didn't know how to handle their own emotions. So yeah, I just want to speak that over you.
Yeah, I agree. I want to add, if you are somebody who has ghosted, that you have the courage to look inside yourself of why you have that behavior, why you are acting like that, and do some healing with a counselor, with a pastor, with
Mhm.
whoever you can trust, who will speak words of affirmation and call out the stuff that needs to be healed.
Mhm.
And then you could have the courage to go to those people that you have hurt and have the difficult conversations and own your stuff, because that's ultimately what we want.
Right on. Thanks for tuning in today on our conversation. Please join us next time when we talk about narcissism.
Yes. Thank you for listening, and take care.